committee, which was done. As Mr. Evans said, they were trained and subject to the city's traditional conflict of interest forms. And under the solicitation document, it advised all participating vendors that up to 3 of them could be shortlisted by the city manager and then brought before you all to serve as the awarding authority. And that's what the city manager has done today. So for each of these 2 requests for qualifications, you will be the selection committee, in essence, in determining who an award is that will be in the best interest of the city. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how you should come about fulfilling that obligation. First is, I believe staff has provided to you a copy of the request for qualifications, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. My understanding is that you've received each of the shortlisted vendors' statement of qualifications, or SOQ. You've also received a staff summary matrix for the shortlisted vendors, which essentially went into the detailed statement of qualifications of each of the shortlisted vendors and summarized them according to the evaluation criteria. So that's another document that's been provided to you in your backup material. The purpose for this evening is to give those 3 shortlisted vendors an opportunity to make a brief oral presentation. And then the council members, as a selection authority, to have a brief question and answer session. Your guiding principle tonight is to determine which of those 3 shortlisted vendors an award to is in the city's best interest. In making that determination, you should be based your decision on the written submission and the oral presentations. And you should be making your decision based on the evaluation criteria that is in the request for qualifications. And I believe you all have an excerpt of the pages of the evaluation criteria. And those are the same criteria that they use for shortlisting, except those evaluation committee members actually scored that based on the relative weight in there. You should take those evaluation criteria, considering the relative weight of them as they were contained in the statement of qualifications, based on your independent review of the qualifications in writing, and based on their oral presentations. And based on those 2 things, make an independent decision as to who is ranked number 1, who is ranked number 2, and who is ranked number 3. And then after you do that, staff will then average your scores, and the vendor with the lowest score will be the highest ranked vendor for you to move forward with should someone make a motion to do that. I wanted to remind you and the participants tonight that the oral presentations are not, the purpose of the oral presentations is to explain or clarify or highlight the existing materials that they included in their statement of qualifications. This is not a negotiation session. It's not a time for the vendors to give you additional information that they did not present in writing. It's a time to explain, elaborate, clarify, or highlight. So in short, again, based on the written submissions, based on the staff summaries that have been provided to you, based on the oral presentations, using the evaluation criteria, that should be the prism that you weigh this all through, and then come up with your rankings 1, 2, and 3 in each respective procurement. And I think that's your job for this evening. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Goldstein. Question from the board.
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Spiritus, go ahead.
Mr. Goldstein, after a decision is made, the city manager is going to have the authority to negotiate a contract and execute a contract without the city council approving that?
That would be based on whatever the city council directs in the motion or in the resolution to approve. I believe in reading the draft of the resolution, that's how it was drafted. But yeah, certainly the city council's prerogative, if they don't believe and you want it to come back to you. I believe because these, from listening to some of the conversations with staff, because these buildings have been built, police and fire station, and the staff have experiencing that, and to move this process along, that's my understanding of what the manager's office felt was in the city's best interest. But ultimately, what the resolution says or what the motion is to move forward, that would be based on, the city council has independent decision-making on that, of course.
Thank you.
Right, I understand what you're saying. Well, Mr. Chair?
Dr. Spears, go ahead.
Right, I understand what you're saying, but there's going to be a lot of items included in that contract that's going to weigh heavily on the taxpayer and on what the result is going to be, the final result of what the building is going to be, both of these buildings. I think it's very important that the city council review that document, that contract, prior to it being executed. In a traditional method of bidding, that would not be necessary. But because this is such an open-ended process, I think it's important that the city council see the contract before it gets executed.
And I think that is certainly the council's right. And I just wanted to point out, I was not involved necessarily in the structuring of this procurement, but I would like to congratulate your staff in selecting a progressive design build method. It's used all the time in the private field. So the first negotiation will really just be for the initial stages for design documents. And so it'll be a much more manageable function before you. And then there will be a second negotiation, which is how much is it going to cost based on those documents. So by selecting the progressive design build method, as opposed to just your traditional one step, this is not to exceed, and you don't even know what the design is, so how can they give you a price for it yet? So at least to the extent that you do have a concern about the method, by making it a progressive design build, I think it should ameliorate some of your concerns. And again, whether it comes back to the council or not, I think that's just a matter of revising the resolution that staff has drafted for you.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
Yes, the interim agreement is what's being asked for to enter into this evening. And then the comprehensive agreement, invariably that will come back before the board for ratification. So that's how we've done it with our other capital projects. So that the more substantive items will come back before the board for discussion and ultimately ratification.
Thank
Mr. Lawson.
Ms. Jacobs, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, do you want to mention the maximum dollar amounts for the interim agreement as well?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
With regards to the fire station, it is $2.5 million, and the police station, it's $3.5 million, which constitutes 10% of what the capital cost is for those respective stations. So that's consistent with industry standards and norms as it relates to design and engineering for construction facilities.
Some questions from the board? Okay. Mr. Evans, I believe we're going to go into the selection of the order for the presentations now. We're going to go ahead and just do police selection and fire selection so we can have the orders for both. And then we do have some special guests. If you want to, the process, Mr. Goldstein, you've already outlined how we're going to select our teams. I don't know if we were clear about how the teams are going to be selected tonight.
If I can elaborate just again, you'll listen to the oral presentations.
No, I'm sorry. What order is the oral presentations going to be given in?
Oh, I don't.
Mr. Evans?
Yes. Sorry.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, with respect to how the presentations will be structured this evening, we do have some individuals that have served, whether it's in the police department or fire department, that we are going to ask to come up. And so I can have my police chief as well as our deputy police chief, as well as our chief of fire come up, and also our invited guest. And so what we will do is we're going to put their names in a hat, and invariably the selection of the first team will come up, and then the subsequent teams will be, the order of presentation will be randomly selected. So the teams today do not know invariably who's going to be the first team to present. So we'll have staff go ahead and have our retirees come on up. So Chief Kurd.
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair, go ahead.
I hate to go back, but I just want to go back to what Ms. Jacobs said. You gave us a maximum and the city manager on the design cost, and you said 10%. Is that going to change? Is that a capped number, or is that going to change as the value of the building goes up?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Mr. Evans.
that's a cap number.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chief Kurd?
And then, Mr. Chair, if we, as we switch between presentations or presenters, if we can allow for 2 minutes to be able to have the presentations displayed on the screen.
Councilman Pro Tem, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Evans, so I guess I'm back with Mr. Spiritus. I mean, if we're talking about 10%, why not just name 10% instead of an actual dollar amount? I would hope that someone can come in and say that they can get us a fire station for $2 million, but I know that's not true, but like realistically, I mean, I'm not about to, this sounds absurd to sit here and suggest that we're going to right off the bat give you a dollar amount of $2.5 million of a change order authority when this can actually come in at 15 million, 17 million. Why not just leave it at the percentage?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Absolutely. I mean, because if we get a $18 million facility, then there's a massive change. I mean, that doesn't make sense. That's what we should be talking about. And if that's the industry standard, let's just leave it at a percentage amount as opposed to a specific dollar amount. That doesn't make sense. And then the very fundamental reason is we don't even know what the price is. And you know what, Mr. Spiritus, I think you're absolutely right. This is why we don't go this route, because everybody's proposal, they know our budget, and they're going to back in until the maximum amount that we've already allocated and we've asked our voters to approve by bonds. So this is definitely the wrong way to be proceeding. I mean, you made a very great point. Now, to sit here and blindly give the manager $2.5 million for the fire station change order authority, and then 3.5 seems to me that developers are looking to back right into that number. And that's without even having designs. And matter of fact, I guess, so at what point does the design specs get created? Because I know when we did 88, those were out front. That's what the basis of the solicitation for 88 was, because the design specs was clearly laid out in there. So when do we lay out the design specifications? Do we have our city engineer here?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Go ahead.
I believe he is present.
I mean, am I wrong? Because I know specifically we talked about this when it came to Fire Station 88, that design specifications were clearly laid out in the solicitation. So if we don't have design specifications laid out now, you can be guaranteed that every dime of that $25 million bond issuance that we're going to issue is going to be spent. And the same can be said for police. This is a terrible process, and I would even ask that we defer on having our former service members even pull a name out the hat, because I'm inclined to even back out of this whole entire design build process and go to a different alternate, because this doesn't make logical sense. I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Yes, Chair, the question?
I believe that Councilman McCoy, Vice Chair, Pro Temp, you had a question for our city engineer?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bailey. So at what point does the design specifications get created? I mean, they're going to just go out and create something willy-nilly, or they're going to have some sort of parameters in which the city is seeking for Fire Station 86 and for our police station? Because I know I've seen something very, I guess, surprising, and it's not a bad thing, that I've seen on one of the proposals for one of the respondents for the police, they had a shooting range. So what are the design specifications, and when does that get presented? Because clearly someone can always create a project that will take us exactly to the amount that we've issued for ad valorem tax revenue bonds.
So the process would be, if a vendor is approved tonight and the resolutions pass, beginning tomorrow, negotiations on the very specifics and particulars of the design contract would move forward. All the subcontractors, architects, other engineers, planners, landscape architects would be engaged fully. They would develop their cost profile, and then they would come back to the city staff with what their proposed design budget would be. The resolutions before you give the city manager the authority to issue a purchase order to start the design up to a maximum of the dollar limits that are in those resolutions. Once the purchase order is initiated, meetings will happen, the scope will be more clearly defined, and the full design process will start in earnest. Site plans will be created, submitted through the Development Services site plan process. Full construction plans will be developed. Multiple GMPs will be provided to the city staff. And then the comprehensive agreement will be developed with all the terms, conditions, and a final GMP, which would then come back to the council. This is the process that we followed on 88, 87, and I believe exactly on the utility special district. So this is how we have been doing large-scale projects over the last 3 years here in the city.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
And I think you made the case. In fact, I've seen it in the Palm Beach Post article specifically about the amount of money that we're spending on public facilities. And that's my concern. Just because, we have it doesn't mean we need to necessarily obligate it. And I'm concerned, Mr. Bailey, if this design build proposal or this route, is the most cost effective and serves the purpose of providing safety facilities for our first responders, as well as, being conscientious of what we currently have to now pass on to the taxpayers. I guess that's a statement. I just don't believe that this is the route. If we're going to sit here and tell them design to $25 million, I mean, do we really have an expectation that this is going to be any less?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Devins, go ahead.
The intent is to design to what the needs of the respective departments have. When we did go out to, and Mr. Bailey can provide a little bit more specificities of the work that got us to the numbers that and how we got to the numbers of these particular facilities. But it was a pretty exhaustive process. Mr. Bailey, if you can kind of walk through how we got to the numbers for both.
And before he does, what are the needs? That's why I asked when are the specifications going to come? And it seems like we're working backwards here.
I think you're using the term specifications. Specifications for construction are how to make the walls stand up, what color paint, what style of paint, how many mils and thickness of the paint. The program, an architectural term, is how many square feet you need, 1 story or 2 story, which department or division will be next to another division, where the stairwell goes. So the question of program is a effort that has been done with the staff, myself, the manager, these departments meeting on what are their needs. Both police and fire have visited other facilities recently constructed in our community to learn best management practices, look at the scope and scale of other police departments, how large are they, what functions they have, do they have code enforcement inside of the police? Is it external? Do they have dispatch or is it county? All of that research has been done over the last 18 months to get us to this point of clarity of our expectation of what both departments need. Then that is translated into a budget provided to finance, and that is what allowed us to go forward with a not to exceed number in the way of the bond issuance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Chair.
Hold on, Dr. Spiritus. Councilman McCoy, are you done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Spiritus, go ahead.
Mr. Evans, is there going to be an independent, and all due respect to our in-house engineers, is there going to be an independent firm that's going to do value engineering on this? That's going to make sure that these prices that we're getting are accurate and not being backed into a number?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, both projects will have owner's reps. So owner's reps will operate in our interest to ensure that we are getting the best value and the best construction methodologies for these two facilities.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor, go ahead.
could I, Mr. Bailey, come back up? I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you guys have did a research. What's the average cost for police and fire in Palm Beach County stations?
I believe the last station we have data on is Highland Beach, and they're at $1,100 a square foot. I believe they just opened that station some weeks ago, within weeks? 2 or 3 weeks ago, Highland Beach opened its new fire station at $1,100 a square foot. Our current construction on 88 8 was about 650, and I think we were just under $700 a square foot on 87.
Give me the total cost, Mr. Bailey. What was the final cost?
See, the final cost is difficult because it's not apples to apples. It depends on the square footage, and they're not the same. But I
Okay,
believe Fire Station 88 is 31,000 square feet at about 650 a square foot, and I think we got out the door for 18.5 was the last number, and demo of the existing 87 plus 87 is a very bad example because the EOC has an entirely different cost profile than any normal office. And when it's done, you'll see the amount of technology and other elements to fund and operate an EOC. It's not apples to apples. It's not just regular space. But I believe we're at $20 million for Fire Station 87 and the Emergency Operations Center that sits on the second floor.
You said the last fire station was where? Highland Beach?
Highland Beach.
What did that cost? What was the final cost?
I want to say, I believe their final cost was 14 million.
13, 14 million.
Yes, for the service area that they have and the size station that they built.
Is that like the average cost in Palm Beach County for fire stations right now?
Not right now, no.
What's the average?
The last 3 stations I was able to get data on that are currently being constructed by Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. One station has come in at $18 million. The next one is at 50% design, and they're anticipating it to be $19 million. And the third has yet to go before design. And please also keep in mind, we just reference them as fire stations. Fire Station 88 is also our administrative headquarters. And you have Fire Station 87 that will also serve as an EOC. So they're not just simply fire stations. There's a little more to it than that. But we can see what's happened post-COVID. The numbers have absolutely grown exponentially for municipal facilities.
And so we're saying for Singer Island, this fire station is going to be $25 million?
No, sir. We're anticipating about $17 million for the fire station, about $5 to $6 million for the water tank demolition. Understand there's also a wetland surrounding it, and we've got to bring that whole site up about 4 feet. So the sheet pile wall and the fill is going to be another few $1 million. The anticipated not to exceed price of $25 million actually encompasses all 5 fundamental elements to fulfill that project.
Right, so it'll be $25 million.
Up to $25 million.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Spears, go ahead.
I think we should note that the Singer Island Firehouse is a 2-bay firehouse as compared to the 4-bay firehouses in 87 and 88.
Thank you, Dr. Spears. Board, do we have any additional questions, concerns, or unreadiness? Before we go forward, we do have a couple of resolutions. We can continue to further our conversation. I know, colleague Pro Temp, you had concern about possibly moving forward with the process. Are we comfortable moving forward? Did you want to put a motion on the table, or should we go forward with the selection?
Yes, I want to ask additional questions. What are our options at this point in terms of scrapping design, build, finance, and going out and facilitating the project management of this using a consultant?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
We would have to restart the process to effectively, move forward and provide the programming. So it is just a matter of the board saying that they wish to decline this process, and then staff would have to convene to map out what the next step in the process is to secure architectural engineering services, to develop the specs, and then put it out to bid for a hard bid, and then look to come back before the board. I don't have a specific timeline as to how long that particular process would take.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
If I can.
Pro Temp, go ahead.
So, I guess it's very important to consider, and I know we have all these fine men and women that have done a lot of great work on their statement of qualifications. However, considering where we are with the cost of 88, 87, and then now being contemplated at close to $300 million just for a water treatment plant outside of the distribution, are we going to sit here and now commit another 55 million, 60 million bucks into a project, into actually 2 projects that we could very much value engineer in-house and likely save it, because I mean, at some point, right, the bill is going to come due on this, and these are the prices today, and we know how much that have changed just since COVID. So I'm not sure that I really like the fact that we're going to just give a maximum amount here and then allow them to build to it. Mr. Spirit has brought up a great point. In fact, 88 used to be a two-bay when it was at the site of where the current urban farm is. 87 was, I believe, always a three-bay, but now seemingly, yeah, I hope that's not the standard to now go 4 bays for every facility. I don't even see how that's possible on Singer Island. When I looked at the footprint, it definitely doesn't seem like it can accommodate that. But I don't want to build a facility solely for the purposes of trying to build out whatever that bond amount is that we've issued. And that seems the way this process is going. And I would be the first to support us scrapping this process and going back to us project managing the process ourselves.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Devin, go ahead.
With respect to what the board is considering, you have 6 firms that are in the room that specialize in this particular field of expertise. And I think it would be appropriate for the board to effectively hear from them as it relates to if there's questions concerning constructability, construction cost, time, speed. That's the business in which that they're effectively in. The one thing I do want to communicate to the board is that every month that goes by, the costs for these facilities go up exponentially. In addition to, we are spending over $350,000 a month or a year as it relates to leasing space just for our police station, let alone we're going to be leasing space for the fire station to relocate them out of Fire Station 86. We have issues as it relates to potential conflicts with, officers and members of the public as it relates to their ability to have secure and safe spaces where they are in an office building. So any delays will consistently cost the city more and compromise our ability to put our employees in facilities that operate in the 21st century. And so certainly it is the board's pleasure. We can move as expeditiously as possible, but it will allow for significant time delays to move in a fashion outside of what we've put before the board this evening for consideration. So I did want the board to know all the facts associated with the decision that invariably you're going to have to make.
Chair?
1 minute, Dr. Spears. Any additional questions from any board members?
Yes, Mr.
Hold on, Pro Temp. Councilwoman Lanier, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I mean, I understand where the conversation is going and how it's going, but I really want to know, why would we wait until we get here to have that discussion in regards to the type of basic RFP? I think that if we wanted to have a conversation about design build versus another type of build, that we should have had this conversation long before now. What we're doing is it doesn't matter in terms of, whatever the board decides, but I just think it's just very rude that we get here to a meeting and we decide that this is not the way we want to go. I just think that we could have done this earlier. I think that we could have, it could have been a discussion at the council meeting in regards to those 2 different types of RFPs or ITVs, because it didn't have to be a specific, subject, police station or fire station. It just could have been a whole discussion about which way we want to go on our capital projects. So I just think that getting here in the room and then, going a different direction I wasn't expecting that. And so I'm not sure of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, because it seems to me that you just want to scrap the whole process and start over.
Mr. Chair,
Thank
can I
you.
respond?
1 second, Pro Temp.
She's asking as to why I'm bringing it up
I don't know
now.
if she asked you directly, Pro Temp, so 1 minute, please. Dr. Spears, please go ahead.
Well, I have two comments on this. First of all, in all due respect to my colleague here, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers to ensure that we get the best product for the least amount of money. So that's why I think we're having this conversation right now and making sure that everything is competitive and on the up and up, and that we are able to get the best price. But while we're here, just to answer some of the questions, I know that we have the owner's rep. I see him sitting here. Are we able to ask the owner's rep some questions with respect to how long it would take if they work with our staff to get us a new bidding document?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
I would not encourage that conversation until the board makes a decision as to what direction it effectively wants to go concerning that.
Chair, I just think that it would help us make that decision if we had that information.
Chair.
One moment, please. Pro Temp, go ahead.
Yes. To answer that question about why we did it now, is remember, as you know, we're bound by the sunshine. And then I think if I can quote you correctly, I'm looking at the newspaper article from today where we specifically, the title is Riviera's Dilemma, 115 million in bond money can't fund much needed water treatment facility. So that's number one. Secondly, there has never been any opportunity that I've seen in the last year that we've ever had a discussion about the police station, fire station, and being able to build this at this cost. Specifically, those numbers came up, I think, during our last summer budget workshop sessions. But now we're in a dilemma where we're already short on dollars for our water treatment plant. So now is the perfect time. So should we allow them to commit the additional 25 million that's already set aside and the 35 million and then try to decide? Now let's have a conversation on, is this too much? I think now is the opportunity, no better time than the present, because meanwhile, we're already contemplating a 99-year lease with the school district for another 55 million. Now, unless you're making $125,000, I don't know who's going to be able to keep up and paying back all this debt service. So this is the perfect opportunity. And members, you know, we've dealt with a number of different things, but there has never been a case where we've had the opportunity to look holistically at all of the obligations that have been placed upon the residents and us when it comes to building these capital facilities, especially with the new information about the increase in our water plant. But you don't have to look far. It's right on the headline of the newspaper, which I believe was in print yesterday and certainly online today. So that is the reason why I'm bringing it up, especially since we just heard the statement that we're going to give them the ability to build all the way up to basically $22.5 million and then give the manager the authority of $2.5 million in change order authority. That's basically giving them a blank check upwards of $25 million. So I don't know how else, and I'm an accountant and I'm certainly not a financier, but this to me seems like, you know, we're entering through the back door, not the front door.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
Before we were able to effectively place these items on the ballot, we had copious amounts of discussions with the board concerning the cost associated with this. It was codified in ordinances. We had budget workshops. I think the board can remember the exhaustive analysis when we were looking at possibly purchasing the BB&T building, now the Truist building, to potentially locate the police department in that particular facility. Then we went to look at multiple locations and then pass resolutions to adopt locations as to where these particular facilities. The board can also recall the conversation that we had with residents on Singer Island when we discussed about the location of a fire station at the Ocean Walk. And so there has been thousands of hours that have gone into this particular process and this particular point. And so there was ample time for the board to provide additional perspectives as well as items legislatively that the board could have acted on that would have in fact slowed or stopped or delayed these particular projects. But one of the things, again, I go back to the point, since I've been the city manager, I've had to close Public Works, Fire Station 88, Fire Station 87, Fire Station 86, the police department, and the library. Our facilities are in bad shape, and we cannot delay any longer because invariably we will have no place to put our employees, and it is an employee recruitment, retention, and a safety issue with regards to the condition of these facilities. Just this week, you all received correspondence from my office that we had a flooding incident that occurred at City Hall where we had to shut down the finance department and the utility billing clerk's office because of the condition of these facilities. As much, I know that the board is a tough decision, and invariably, you did not want to be in this predicament, but it is issues that we have to address holistically, and we know the challenges with regards to the water infrastructure, but we are in desperate times right now, and we have to move expeditiously to be able to move these facilities forward because they are just not able to continue in their existing condition any longer.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Additional questions from the board? Go ahead, Councilwoman Lanier.
I think that for me, the issue is getting here. Now, I'm more than anyone, and I'm sure everybody up here has the understanding that our job is to save money. But, you know, as the manager said, we've had conversations about these bonds. We've had conversations with even just procurement. We've had special meetings on procurement. We could have had a conversation about how we send that bid out. And to get to this point and say, well, you know what, I don't think I like it this way. I mean, you can say that, you can, very well so. But to not do that, you know, in the last 5-6 months, to not do that and have that conversation, at least broach the subject. But we get to a meeting where we have to make a decision, and then it seems like we just are kind of pushing the can down the road, or let me change my mind. But I understand that this is our job. Our job is to make sure that the monies that were given to us in bonds by the residents, that we make sure that we have a fiduciary duty to ensure that that money is not spent incorrectly. But I think that my frustration is getting to this point when we could have had this conversation at our last special meeting in regards to procurement. We could have said that, you know what, we got these bonds coming up. You know, the last couple of ITBs or RFPs that gone out have been design build, and we shouldn't do it that way. And we could have done that. So, I mean, I guess better late than never, but I think that's just my frustration tonight with that.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lanier. Additional comments from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Spiritus, go ahead.
I just want to make it clear that I am 100% in favor of building Station 86 and building the new police station. It's the process that I'm concerned with and the funds that I'm concerned with. But I am 100% for building the police station and the firehouse. I know that we need that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spiritus. Additional comments from the board? If we don't have a motion on the table, if we can move forward with the process. If we can have Chief Gerd.
Chair, Council, in preparation of the selection process, each firm's name has been added to the piece of paper here. And as they are pulled and named, called out, announced out loud, I will write a number on them to make sure that the order of presentations follows in the correct order of selection. So,
Thank you, Ms. Boynton. Are we doing selection for fire?
fire.
Thank you.
And this evening's selections are being made by former Chief Reginald Duran. We have Captain Frank Shiola, who's a retiree from Riviera Beach Fire Rescue, Captain Ralph Franklin, retiree, Riviera Beach Fire Rescue, and my mentor and the guy who hired me, y'all can blame him, Chief Troy Perry, to go ahead and make a pick if each one of y'all. We'll get the two chiefs and whoever have more seniority on the two. Isn't that the way we do it?
Hold it. Next. Okay, here's next. Okay. You want to announce the name?
Mike.
Chief, if we can have them speak into the mic, and then if you want to select who is going to go first, I don't know if it says.
First is the first person up.
Okay, fair enough.
Good evening. Kaufman Lynn Construction.
Cast Construction Company.
The Haskell Company.
Thank you. And thank you so much to our men that have served this amazing community. Thank you. If you guys can give them a round of applause, please.
Now for PD, Deputy Chief Coppin. And as it relates to the presentation concerning the police department will be first.
Good evening, everyone. The gentleman with me, a lot of you should know, his name is retired Lieutenant Reno Wells. Served this community for over 22, 23 years, retired military and retired civilian contractor. And I think you still live local. Yes. He still lives in the city, still a resident, and he's going to do our selection for us for the new police department.
Go ahead, open it and step up to the mic and
Kaufman Lynn Construction, Inc. A&F Group Incorporated. Core Construction Service of Florida, LLC.
Thank you. And if we can give it up for Mr. Reno Wells. Thank you. So we have the orders, Mr. Evans, if you can announce the orders again for us. And then before we go into that, Ms. Hall, how many public comment cards do we have?
Mr. Chair, we have 8 general public comment cards.
Okay. All right, board, since it is 7:30, to all of our residents, visitors, board members, we'll go straight into public comments. We will allow for public comment, then we'll go straight into our presentations. So, Mr. Evans?
Yes, Mr. Chair, for the purposes of the presentations for the police department, it will be Kaufman Lynn Construction will be presenting first, A&F Group Inc. Second, and Core Construction third. And then for the presentations for the fire department, Kaufman Lynn Construction 1, Cass Construction Company 2, and Haskell Construction Company 3.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Public comment. Public comment shall begin at 7:30 unless there's no further business of the city council, in which event it shall begin sooner. In addition, if any item is being considered at 7:30, then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Please be reminded, the city council board has adopted rules of decorum governing public comment during official meetings, which has been posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if the rules are not adhered to, the city council chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, or from the building. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk?
First, we will have Andrew Gianta, followed by Lady Goldwire, and then Scott Lewis.
Mr. Gianta? Ms. Goldwire?
Good evening, Lady Goldwire. I am here to just offer a point of education for many of the developers here in the room, and for some of the, or most of the construction community stakeholders. My experience recently with the building department locally has been subpar at best. Building permits are taking excessively long amounts of time to be issued, reviewed, considered. Revisions, same thing. You guys are spending quite a bit of time trying to make decisions as it pertains to who you're going to choose for your construction projects and how that's going to play out. But inevitably, what's going to happen is you go through this process only to bottleneck in the building department. As the former building official here for this city, I will say this. When I was in that seat, it was very, very, very contentious, and there was always conversation about me turning around the permits quickly. And at no time, no time was I ever permitted to just stall them out unnecessarily. There had to be impediments to life safety or concerns about the general welfare of the public. And that's in this instance, you meet a lot of resistance as a result of there just not being adequate staff, people walking in, walking out without their permits, phones going unanswered, emails lingering. It's traumatic at best, and it's malignant. I wanted to offer up or put into the atmosphere the fact that a lot of these people don't realize, some of the savvier developers may, that there is a Florida statute that allows you to internalize your building plan review and inspection process, but for zoning, fire, engineering, whatnot. You can cut a lot of your process in half. And while I've tried not to act in that capacity in the city of Riviera Beach, I'm finding that many of the people in this room are my clients anyway, as a result of them not being able to move forward. And so I would encourage those here to research Florida Statute 553.791. Your building department may attempt to tell you that you don't have that option, or they have the decision to decide otherwise. The statute is very, very clear about what your rights are. The building department does not have the right to refuse you that option. They have to administer a discount on the building permit fees. And since the fees that you guys are collecting on a lot of the construction is been redirected anyway, you can't staff the departments, and you're constantly hearing that the narrative for Riviera Beach is you can't do good business here. I think it's something that the developers need to revisit, and I'll address it more in the comments on some of the other items on the agenda.
Thank you for comments.
Next is Scott Lewis, followed by Erica Davis and Anna Vergne.
Welcome, Ms. Lewis.
Scott Lewis, Wilma Circle. I cannot more strongly emphasize that what Mr. McCoy and Mr. Spiritus were saying, I 100% support it. And you've heard me speak about this, and there's three of you that are hell-bent on following staff, doesn't matter where they go. Absolutely. You ask me if I want to have a $25 million home, I'm going to get a $25 million home. All right? And you're going to spend every penny of it. And then a year from now or 3 years from now, you're going to be fighting like hell over the damn water project that's still sitting there. All right? That's our focus. I've heard staff tonight talk about thousands of hours and exponential costs going up every month. Bull. All right? Exponential costs don't go up monthly. We're talking about maybe a 90-day to 120-day delay to do what I heard was suggested here but didn't come into motion. That would put you right about the time that you would be looking at the water plant actual cost, where we could bond it. Then you can see if the taxpayers who you are representing can afford this. Because building castles is not the job. Thank God I heard a comment up here. You mean we're going to let staff go with $25 million? Well, that's sort of what I understand happened on Singer Island with the last fire station money. That money got transferred, to my knowledge. I've heard there was never a board vote about that. That was staff. Just transfer all that money across the bridge, designated for something that was woefully inadequate on Singer Island. I'm sorry that they got a delay, 90 days or 120, but think about the people out here, the business community that has to pay, forget this $250,000 for your property tax assessment. Businesses aren't worth that. They're worth a lot more. And they're not going to come here if they got to pay taxes through the nose, the highest taxes in the county, near the highest. Don't do that to your future. You may not be sitting up there when all this comes due, but please think about the future, the people you represent. You don't represent all the private companies here. I'm in a private company. We make money. That's our job. What you need to do is balance that against efficiency, and please stop walking blindly into this stuff. And there is no god-awful rush. When you were talking about the expenses of delaying, one of the things I heard was $360,000 in annual rent. The interest alone on a $115 million bond would be delayed, so you won't have interest payments starting up. So you will have a cost effectiveness of just pausing for 90 to 120 days. Please be more patient. Please be efficient. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Mr. Chair, the time is 7:31 PM. The acceptance of public comment cards for general public comment is now closed. Next is Erica Davis.
Erica Davis, Riviera Beach. Like Mr. Evans said, there was numerous workshops, discussions about this. The people, we the people voted on it for it to come to fruition. And if anybody didn't agree with it, they didn't vote on it. Our police need their building. The people spoke. We want it to move forward. It seems like every time we get to the procurement process, once again, there's always a problem. We have bonds. The bonds are going to go strictly for those projects. If it's 25 million, if 25 million is spent, let it be. Last week, you all just voted to give away $5.5 million property of ours for free without any documents or anything. We're going to have to stop this when it comes to procurement and giving away property, changing codes and all this stuff to suit you. We, the people, have spoken. We want our fire departments to get their facilities. We want our police departments to get their facilities ASAP. We voted on the bonds. Move the process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next is Anna Bergne, Doretta Polk, followed by Margaret Shepherd.
I'm Anna Bergne. I'm sorry. I think some of us continue to find process an issue here in the city. I often come up here, and when I talk, you guys will often hear me talk about a process issue, right? One of the things that I also speak about is that you guys, as our council, have experts working for you that should be giving you information that you're not getting to be able to make multi-million-dollar decisions. And it's extremely frustrating to me every time I come up here. It happens each and every time you guys are spending multi-million dollars and there's staffing issues in the way they're giving you the information, or they're giving the information to you 4 days ahead to look at 600 pages. None of that is okay because you're not going to make an educated decision. We need the fire station, and I totally support the fire station. I definitely support the police, but I don't want you to spend 25 million when you don't have to. I agree with Mr. McCoy, and I agree with Mr. Spiritus. Throw the process out if it doesn't work. Mr. Evans, you need a process or a checklist? I'll make one for you. No, honestly, because how many times have I come up here and I asked for the same thing? The issue here is the process is broken. The council blames each other. It's not a council issue, it's a process issue. Mr. Evans, when are you going to fix the process? It's broken. It's broken. If you don't fix it, they're not going to be able to vote and make appropriate decisions on our money. It's our money, and we're bleeding money. And it's not just about this fire station. This is huge. But when I look at the books, because I'm one of those people that ask for invoices. We're bleeding all over the city. And when we talk about accountability and fiduciary responsibility, that doesn't just go for the council. It goes for the employees in this city too. They have a responsibility to spend our money in an efficient manner and with respect and ethics. And Mr. Evans, you and I both know that's not happening. And if any of you want proof, I'll be happy to provide it. So, no, throw the process out. It's not going to work. Clearly, they've outlined that for Mr. Evans and the people in the room. Yes, we need it. I have been to the fire station on Singer Island. It's falling apart. Our fire department should not be there. But you know what? That fire department, it was recommended to this city that in 1998, it was no good.
Madam Clerk, next speaker.
Doretta Paul, Margaret Shepherd, followed by Reverend Burrs.
Good evening. My name is Doretta Park, and who I want to talk with just left the room, but hopefully Mayor Felder will be back before my 3 minutes up. I want to talk about Mrs. Spiritus. The last meeting you said that you feel that if the director of the infrastructure of the utility should have an engineering degree. Well, that's not mandated. There are a lot of directors of utility that doesn't have an engineering degree. In the engineering department, you have a director, you have an assistant director, you have a compliance manager, you have lab technicians, and you have a water plant supervisor. So that's kind of, that was your opinion that we should have, the director should have, of infrastructure should have a degree in engineering. But a lot of cities do not because they have just what I named. Another thing, Mr. McCoy, Councilman McCoy, you want to be so fruitful about the money, our money, taxpayers' hard money, but you gave this attorney that came was only wanting $15,000 more. You gave a total of $50,000 of our tax money, your tax money, but you run on being fruitful and making sure not one dime is spent improperly. And that's all she wanted, but you gave her more. And I think it should have been, it should have been discussed to the council about giving her more, which it voted on. Y'all had 3-2. And I don't think that was right at all. When you run on being totally fruitful. Another thing, with Mayor Felder, he said that he's having this investigation concerning how people are disgruntled. And he said people are coming to him. But there's numerous people that he had solicited to come and meet with him and see if they have any complaints. And that's all right. That's okay. But tell it like it is. Not like just people are running to him and saying this, that, and the other. I don't know. I hope this is not a witch hunt. And Mayor Felder said, the system is broken. It's not about the people, it's the system. So if it's broken, let's work together. Let's just work together and let's fix it. But you have all these people, the director, assistant director, compliance manager, lab technician, and water. And let's just get to the bottom of this.
Thank you for your
and
comments.
try not to blame other people.
Thank you for your comments.
I thank you so much, and let's be fair and kind here.
Margaret Shepherd, Reverend Burrs, Mary Graham.
Welcome, Ms. Shepherd.
Good evening, Margaret Shepherd, to the Honorable Chair Lawson, to our Mayor, of course, to all of you in your respectful places, and to our City Manager. You know, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and my dad, who's pure Bahamian, wanted my mom to go up there to have children because he did not want to be here in the South. This past week, I'm in total shock when I got a phone call from Dr. Julie Botel, and she started telling me this story. and I was scared half out of my wits. And I'm not a scary person. I'm not scary, but that particular moment I was scary. Start talking about a resident that is a member of the armed services. And I won't go into it. I start telling the city manager about it, and Mrs. Spiritus, of course, I called and didn't want to overlook you, Miss Mill Anderson, but I heard you talk about your mother, and I didn't want to get into it. But it's a sad change that still exists in here in the city of Riviera Beach, racism. I think where I'm at is 10 African-American families. And I'm petrified that it happened to me, but of course I was ill when I got there. My daughter came to take care of me to kind of get me back on my feet. So she had to take up that fight, and I thank her for it. But it's time for us to come together, Mr. Evans. I'm just horrified. I still haven't gotten over it. And when you hear the story, the hair on your head would just stand up. But let's go to the water department. I listened to Ms. Lanier keep talking about she wanted to hear about the investigation. It was going on to be a year. And for some reason, I didn't think about it till yesterday. It will be a year. And so you sit there and you wonder who you want to throw this on. I mean, who should we blame? Mr. Lowe was the director, then he had assistant director, then he had another African-American lady, and he had two African-American men. And I'm trying to figure out, who do you want to blame? I'm still waiting. I'm patient. I just want to hear the whole story before I talk about it. Ms. Deirdre Jacobs came in when we needed her. And I can't even remotely think that we would say she's the problem. We ought to thank her because nobody was over there to kind of guide that program until you got the director. So I think she has many hats that she tried to wear. She tried to appease everybody. I think she does it in a diplomatic way because if not, I would have said something about it. But Mr. Mayor, I am still waiting. I want to hear the conclusion of the matter. Thank you.
Reverend Burrs, followed by Mary Brown.
Welcome, Reverend Burrs.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and City Manager. This wasn't my intent to be here. First time in the last 2 or 3 years, but sitting there looking at the council meeting, and it's really disturbing, to tell you the truth, how the water department in the building is increasing. I was listening at how you was talking about rebuilding the water department and the police department, fire department, which nobody here no better than me knows those things should be rebuilt. But before y'all got here, I tried to get the past city manager, Ruth Jones, to go in a different direction. Would have saved the city a lot of money, but they won't listen. Sometimes like y'all won't listen to us either, because when y'all get there, it seems like the citizens get dumb and y'all get smart, and you want to listen to people who have some experience and some history with this city. Now, when I was listening at the talking about building the fire department, the police department, and the money, why can't I remember when I was employed for the city, we had a engineer department and a planning department who would draw plans. Why can't the city do that today? Maybe that's elementary nowadays. You get your department to draw what you with the fire department, police department. They know what they need. They know what they want. And let them get some engineers to draw the plans they need. The fire department could draw the plans they need and get some contractor to bid on the plans. Because as somebody was saying, if they know how much money it's going to cost, quite naturally, they're going to try to use up all the money. And a gentleman came in and been saying it many times how water bills increasing. I remember some years ago, past council passed a resolution to renovate the water plant that we have now. That's not the first water plant this city had. A lot of people think that is, but it's not the first water plant that this city had. But they floated a bond to do some work on that water plant now. And they stated that when that bond is complete, they will drop that price, what was on the water bills, off the people's water bill. But when that time expired, You all, the finance department convinced y'all to don't take it off, but add it to it. Y'all ain't forgot that. So now I understand that the finance department says that, not the finance, I'm sorry, but the finance department says, the director says that, well, it ain't gonna cost but $25 more a month. That ain't much. No, it's not much to him because he don't stay here. He don't stay here. He's a taker. He gets what he have to go and leave. These people, y'all got to start considering the citizens. Talk with somebody. You're talking about this water plant you're gonna build. You need some infrastructure work done, just like building 5, 10-story building on a foundation for a house. Get your infrastructure work done, and then you can be able to
Thanks for your
follow
comments,
it
Mr.
for the water
Burris.
department.
Thank you,
There's
Reverend
a lot
Burris.
to be said because I wouldn't intend to come over.
Mr. Burris, thank you for your comments, sir.
Mary Brown.
Welcome, Ms. Brown.
Good evening. Miss Mayor Bram, Riviera Beach. Tonight you will be embark on something that must have the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And the facilitator that was conducting the process here, you must consider the weight. You must also consider the oral decisions. You must also consider the written responses in where we as a city want to go. What are their finances? The summary of their staff. Are these people still qualified? What would they bring to the table here? Other than have we experienced some things that some may have had that have had some gaps in it? I believe in getting the best. I believe in qualified people. A lot of times we do put people in places that are not supposed to be there, hoping that they will rise to the occasion. Yes, in the workforce and everywhere else, as government as well. It all plays that. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, the stepmothers, the grandmothers, everyone. Should we move this? Yes, we should move it on the critiqueness of everybody is being qualified to deliver on their goods. Not just thinking that a process is tainted or something is not done. We look at them qualifications. We have been done in so many times here. So that responsibility lies on you. And guess what? In this election here, Ms. Bram gonna be in this election here because everything will be on billboards. I have organizations that have said the same thing too. We want to see this city move in the positive direction. Cinco de Mayo Day. We celebrated that on yesterday too, along with the commemoration of tearing down that 1978 police department over there. And it was a wonderful celebration. The clerk staff, they did a wonderful job in hosting us. So the day yesterday was a beautiful day. And congratulations to all the clerks all over the county as well as our clerks here, because it was National Clerks Day all over. So if you all forgotten that, shame on you all as well. I'm gonna say something to the utility district here. Applications are here for the utility district. Anyone that's willing to want some assistance in their utility district, these are the forms here. You can pick them up at the utility district. And also, I'm encouraging you as council representatives too, to have some on you all, so that you all can give them to your constituents.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Madam
Mr.
Clerk?
Chair, that is the end of public comment.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Comments from Mr. Evans, if you want to address any public comment?
Mr. Chair, very briefly, with respect to the communications on the process with the building department, I am convening a meeting with staff to find out exactly what the particular issues are. And Ms. Goldwire did reach out to my office, and I think we have or will be scheduling a meeting to speak in greater specificity. It was mentioned about the monies being transferred from Fire Station 86 to 87. That was a legislative action that did come back before the board. With respect to the disturbance that Ms. Shepherd spoke of, I have had conversations with PD concerning that particular matter. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And to comment on some of the concerns of some of the taxpayers in reference to the process we're going forward, we want to go into our presentations, but I have a question for you, Mr. Evans. The contract that we're going to be bringing back before the board will include the design price and the GMP. At what time does that come back before us, the GMP price?
Mr. Chair, I want to be intentional about my comments, so if you would allow for me to just have some conversations with staff as about how long that process would take, I'll be able to provide you with that before the close of the meeting.
Perfect. And there was another comment that was made earlier from staff. I believe Pro Temp McCoy asked for staff to convey on or to caucus on an item to see if they came up with an answer as of yet. My concern today is that if we own the design and we pay for the design, at that time, if the board is not happy with that GMP price, can we go out for a hard bid?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans?
You effectively do have the ability to off-ramp and go out for that.
So to that point, I know that I've asked these questions, and this is my agenda review. So to my colleagues, we are here at the design bid right now, and if we get a guaranteed price and we get independent cost estimates, and they're way lower than the GMP price that we're looking at with the design that's been brought back to us, we can, as Dr. Spiritus asked, or even Councilman McCoy decided that we could go out for a hard bid at that time. So moving forward with this process, that's letting our responding bidders, and when we negotiate this contract, that we're looking out for the best interests of our taxpayers. So if we go forward with this process and we come back with a negotiated price, and this is not to the satisfaction of the board, we have the opportunity as a board to go back out for bid, is what I'm understanding. Mr. Evans? Councilman McCoy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just respond to that. I've seen this movie before. In fact, that's the same exact thing that was stated when we had the design for the water utility plant.
Yep.
That we would have the option to go back out to hard bid out the construction. And that never even came back up before. So, it's good in theory to talk about how great these ideas are of cost saving measures, but it never amounts to that. And I'm just telling you right now, I've shared with the administration, well, let me clarify, I shared with legal some of the things that I've seen that are anomalies and just not connected properly with the way the organization is operated going back to 30 years ago, specifically revolving around, I think, a suggestion that Mr. Burge brought up with water utilities and bills and liens and things that were placed on individuals' property going 30 years ago. We're literally making this community, with the amount of money that we're levying on water utility bills, which, that's the basis of the paper, that we're still $115 million short. That's not even including the distribution system. Then we're talking about a recreation facility members. We have this in front of us today, and I'm prepared to, move forward with it, but we need to have more of a retreat meeting to understand what are the priorities of the organization, because we can't continue to sit here and pile on 50 million, 115 million, $300 million and really expect that this is going to be viable for anyone to live in the city. And then the most startling thing that nobody has responded to, right? And I've asked this for several months and we've not gotten one answer. Even the newspaper brought this up, that there is a suggestion that there's an estimate of $250 that it's going to cost a person for the bond that we're floating in order to satisfy the requirements of a water utility plant. Or, I'm sorry, not for the water, for the $115 million of these bonds. That's totally incorrect. That's totally incorrect. There was never any pro forma. There was never any information that actually came out that even suggested that, because there's a lot of assumptions that you don't even consider, like what is the actual millage rate going to be? So, like, these are real conversations. And, while we're term limited, most of us, we have lifetime attachments to this community. And I want to make sure that, when I traverse through here 20 years from now, that, the people that founded this community that have been here are still around or their families are around, but we're going to make it very much possible that it's going to be unaffordable to even live here. So that's why I want us to be conscientious in our decisions and make sure that we ask the right questions, because it's easy to vote for anything that's put in front of you, but just know there are often unintended consequences that we find out later. No different than I found a 30-year mistake that was created in 1995, and I brought it to the city attorney's attention, and it's not gotten to the point where we can kind of figure out how to address it. But these kind of things happen, and it's when we find out about it after the fact that it becomes monumental. So I just want to caution you, and I'm not trying to put a fear factor, but members, we're making decisions for the generations to come. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Pro Tem.
Chair.
Councilwoman Lanier, go ahead.
I'd also like to say as well, I do like the idea of hard bids. We go through this process before it goes to signature in terms of contract. It comes back to the council. We negotiate. If it's not to our liking, then that's what we do. I can agree with that. And also too, I want to agree with the fact that we do need a workshop in terms of this water department, in terms of what's happening with the cost of it. There are a lot of, I had a meeting with the consultants on the project, and there are a lot of moving pieces to this thing. And I think that the council needs to be able to sit down and talk with the owners' reps, talk with the people who are doing the work, talk with our engineers, talk with our staff to be able to get a grip on this, because we cannot allow, this to pass us by when we need to be able to get a handle on this, because it really isn't about, let me get a hard price. It is about, one of the consultants said that, you have to give an account for every single nut, bolt that goes into that brand new building. And we need to be able to, from the very beginning, to know exactly what we're facing in terms of cost. So I think that the council certainly needs to have a workshop with owners reps and the construction team and the city to make sure that, and even the public wants to know this information, to make sure that we're following this process and not just, hearing about it, through a third party. So I certainly agree with that approach.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lanier. Additional comments on the board? Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, at this time, if we can take a brief recess to be able to prepare for the presentations, no more than 2 minutes, so we can 2 to 3 minutes, so we can upload the presentations and prepare for the first presentation.
Okay, we'll go ahead and re-adjourn this meeting at 8:06 p.m.